On a typical day for a serious wage earner, he gets a call from his boss on his way to his office. The salaryman tells his boss that he is just on his way to meet a client and that he has made an appointment. After the meeting with the client, the salesperson swears that the deal did not go according to his plan, so he gets upset because he thought he could finally please his boss. But then he remembers that he has more clients in his contacts that he can try to reach out to and get them to invest in his company. Once again, Salam is determined and vows to work hard and reach out to many clients to achieve his goal. After many failures, he finally reaches an agreement with the end customer and achieves his quota. Thus, he believes that his boss will finally be pleased with him and give him the position he so desperately needs. As the salaryman begins to dream of a new life, the criminal grabs a gun and runs past him out of the police station. It turned out that the criminal managed to escape only by stealing the policeman's gun and shooting him. But the policeman is still not there and he runs towards the criminal to catch him in the act of recklessness. The police manage to knock the criminal to the ground. But the criminal trembles and blindly shoots and hits the salary in the heart. A salaryman, who just dreamed of a new, happy life, falls to the ground and bleeds to death. Wondering what happened, he is desperate to come back to celebrate everyone after he finally ascends. But unfortunately his life fades away. However, his desire to live a new, happy life was heard by God, who took pity on him because of his unfortunate death. Thus, the god gives the salaryman another chance to live a happy life and reincarnates him in a world full of magic and monsters. Then, the salaryman wakes up in the new world of isekai and finds himself in the clothes of a typical aristocrat. His appearance has changed significantly and he looks like a younger man. But on the contrary, his black hair has turned gray and he looks even brighter than in his previous life. But he is more interested in seeing the new world in which he lives. As he realizes that he has just been reincarnated, a sudden strong wind blows him to the ground, and he sees that a giant red dragon is responsible for creating such strong winds. This is the story of Sal's reincarnation in the world of Galgardia. As the dragon flies away, the salaryman wonders why he was reborn into such a world. God communicates with him through divine revelation and gives him basic knowledge about this isekai world. God tells him that if he wants to survive, he must read the words, "State is open." To see his condition, he reads the words and a system menu pops up showing all his personal information in this world. On the menu, he's surprised to see that his name and job are still unknown, thinking it's just like a game. God tells him that only his race and age are predetermined, and that he can choose the rest of his stats, such as his name, skills, and job. The god then wishes him a blessed new life and leaves his presence. Thus, the salaryman realizes that he has really been reincarnated and wonders what he should call himself. He sits in the square thinking about what to name himself, and after a few hours decides to call himself Lucille, which means light in Latin. After registering his new name in the system menu, Lucille wonders what skills he should add for himself. The options show that he can have many skills, but he chooses skill assessment, martial arts, magic control, and monster luck. After that, Lucille quickly chooses the doctor for her job, because who in their right mind chooses to be a swordsman, a mage, or a tank? Anyway, Lucille explains why he chose his job as a doctor because he was always an assistant when he was paid in his previous world. So he still wants to be in the help desk in this world so he can help people and have a steady job. Besides, Lucille didn't have the courage to face other animals in this world after the dragon he saw earlier. That's why he didn't choose to be in the combat unit. Lucille then checks his pockets and finds 3 coins inside. So he thinks this is all he has for now and hopes to earn more money in this world, since in the anime world a person is considered an adult at the age of 15. Lucille realizes that she is also an adult here and decides to find a job. As he walks forward, searching a nearby town, he accidentally stumbles upon the corpse of a dragon. Seeing the beast's corpse, Lucille is frightened and runs in the opposite direction as fast as he can. Lucille swears that she does not want to die another miserable death and to stay out of harm's way in this world so that she may die of old age. After running around for a while, Lucille finally finds the entrance to the city. But before he gets inside, he sees the travelers showing something to the gatekeepers. So he realized he needed proof of identity to get in. He even noticed that there were 4 coins to enter and only 3 were on him. However, after learning everything, Lucille tries to get inside. So the guard stops him and asks him for his ID. Lucille bluntly explains to the guard that she has no identification. He also makes up a lie that he grew up in a remote village, grew up and became a doctor. According to Lucille's bogus story, the people of her village thought she didn't need a doctor and kicked her out, and that's why Lucille came here. Lucille tells the guard that if given the chance, she would like to train at the hospital and help people. The guard is suspicious of him and goes inside to call a higher up. Lucille thought he was interrupted when the blonde knight approached him and asked if he really wanted to join the clinic. Lucille falls in love at first sight and the blonde knight tells Lumina that he really wants to marry her. I mean, he really wants to get a job in this town. So Lumina tells Lucille to follow her to the healing guild in this town. Lucille asks the guard what he has to do to pay to enter the city. And the guard says they don't take any taxes from healers. So Lucille goes to the city unconcerned and runs towards Lumina to catch up with her. But he acts like a blind man and encounters 3 fiery, powerful-looking adventurers. A little mad, the blonde hunter asks Lucille why she's in such a hurry. So Lucille tells him she's going to the Healers Guild. Lucille then apologizes to the adventurer for confronting her, saying that she is not yet a doctor because she has not learned to use magic. The adventurer understands and tells Lucille not to be a corrupt healer because it could be a death wish. Lucille reveals that spreading kindness is her motto and that she strives to be a moral person. And so the adventurers let him go, and he finally felt relieved. Lumina praises him for his bravery and assures him that if they gave him a hand, he would have stepped up, therefore, he is not worried at all. Lucille realizes that Lumina must be really strong because she's ready to take on 3 big adventures. Anyway, the two make their way to the Healers Guild, and Lucille sees that the citizens and houses are from the Middle Ages, confirming that he is indeed reincarnated in the isekai world. Lucille asks Lumina why no tolls are collected at the gate, and Lumina explains that the Empire only collects tolls from healers. According to him, doctors deal with matters of life and death, so they receive preferential treatment. So, Lucille really made a good choice by choosing a healer, and thanks the monster luck skill for bringing her good luck. He learns from Lumina that healing is a special thing here, as the so-called Holy Republic of Shurul is the only place where the headquarters of the Healers Guild is located. They finally arrive at the Healers Guild, and Lumina greets Lucille in a place that isn't as loud as the Adventurers Guild's, Kururu. The guild's receptionist gives Lucille an application to fill out the necessary information. At first he can't read any of them, but suddenly he understands everything and fills in the information. Kururu greets Lumina, and as they talk, Lucille realizes that Lumina must be someone important. Anyway, Lucille fills in her name and age, but can't fill in her hometown because it doesn't exist. He asks Kururu, the receptionist, that he doesn't know the name of his village and asks if it would be better to just write the village. So Kururu thinks Lucille is an idiot and tells her to fill in whatever she wants. He hands the form to Kururu and then asks Lumina what the name of this city is. Lumina also begins to think that Lucille is actually an idiot and tells him that it is the city of Meritoni in the Republic of Saint Shurul. Lucille is enraged to hear such a big name and vows to do his best to learn it. Kururu returns to the main hall with a magic tester and tells Lucille to channel her magic at him. Lucille takes the card even though he doesn't know how to use magic, but then he remembers that he chose a skill called magic control, so he concentrates on the card and channels his magic to show that he is a G-rank healer. Dude doesn't even have an F. Kururu takes the card back and goes to another room to assess everything. Lumina explains that Lucille's card is registered to the Healers Guild's magical network, allowing him to use it at any other Healers Guild in this world. Kururu confirms that Lucille is indeed a healer and tells her that she has a skill called magic control and is close to holy magic. When Lucille gets her healer's license, Lumina takes a leave of absence, believing her work is done here, but Lucille still has to learn how to use magic, and she's not done yet, as she needs his help to get a job at the clinic. He tells Lumina about his difficulties, so Lumina gives him 3 options. First, study hard by himself until he learns healing spells. 2. Getting a loan and getting into a magical school using the loan as tuition. And 3. Apprentice at a guild to do chores and learn magic in their spare time. Lucille wonders which option he should choose, and since he was once a salary, he enters the first option, Spartan training. Both Lumina and Kururu think Lucille is too stupid to choose Spartan training, but they respect her choice. Lucille then formally promises Lumina to leave the guild and return it the day before she goes to her room as shown by Kururu. In her room, Lucille finds a magical book on the table and immediately begins to read it. He thinks he can get all the information in his head in 10 days. He learns the basics of magic and decides to try it. First, he creates a mental image of the reverse wound and recites the spell to activate the healing. But almost nothing happens, and he only feels that a little something has left his body. So he opens the system menu and realizes that the only reason it's not working well is because his holy magic affinity is at a new stage. Thus, Lucille continues to practice until he runs out of magic points and ends up with a severe headache, having used up all of his mana. so he rests and finds his mana restored the next morning. Today, Lucille is determined to improve her skill level and continues to practice her magic to perfect it. He repeats the incantation routine but stops without getting tired. He then practices magical processing to master his magic while his MP recovers. After repeating the process over and over again, Lucille sees his stats rise. A guild servant named Monica brings food to Lucille, and he falls in love with her, leaving Lumina. Unfortunately, it's for a side character when Lucille returns to training. On the third day of training, he finally manages to chant a healing spell. Afterwards, she takes another assessment test and confirms that Monica can now use healing spells. Monica asks for a silver coin to rent the guild room, but Lucille immediately gives it back and apologizes to her after learning that she is Lumina's guest. Monica explains that Lumina is a big deal and is actually the captain of the church's regiment of female paladins. So, Lucille realizes that it is because of her beast luck skill that she has come across such an important person. Lucille then heads to the city to make money because he heard that a lot of money can be made simply by healing people. So he directly seeks out the Adventurers Guild to work as a healer. As he was on his way, 3 adventurers that Lucille had encountered earlier called out to him. As a gray-haired adventurer named Bazin tries to pull Lucille's leg, a group of badly wounded adventurers arrive. They think that there is no hope left, because if there is not enough money, the clinic will not accept. So Lucille, being the only good guy in town, decides to treat them for free. Lucille meets Monica, who tells her that there aren't many healers because it's too hard for the healer guild to censor healers. He explained that if a healer decides to misbehave, asking for excessive fees, they cannot stop him from doing so, because they also feel that the healer needs the community, so by putting him cannot be sent. After hearing their concerns, she promises to ensure that she becomes a good healer and does her best to take care of people and not use her skills for her own benefit. After he leaves her, he goes to the street where he sees wounded adventurers. He approaches them and promises to heal them all. Although he is nervous and scared because he has never faced such a situation before, he summons his courage and his desire to cure them drives him to do something. He goes to the first victim and assures him that he will heal him. She sings her song, and after she finishes her transformation, she calls out to heal, but to her surprise, her magic doesn't work. One of the adventurers around asks him what he's doing and is he sure he can heal the injured. He apologizes for what happened and says it was his fault. He tries to think about where he went wrong, especially knowing that he doesn't have any magical power at the moment, and wasting it without healing anyone wouldn't do any of them any good. In his mind, the mistake he made was not using his mind to understand how magic worked. Because he did, he realizes that in order for the magic to work, he needs to create a mental figure in which the injury can heal itself and recover. So that's the only way he can do that. He imagines that his wound is healing, and he calls out the chant. This time he succeeds and the wound heals. He goes ahead to heal others. He does what he can for a while and ends up being one of the wounded. When he goes to him and tries to heal him, he finds that he has only 1 strength left and that he is getting weaker. He hopes he can heal the last person before he passes out, but his eyes suddenly close, he falls down and he can no longer stand up. He realizes that it is impossible to heal the last man and is very upset when he hears the voices of those around him trying to ask him to get up so that the last man does not die. Unfortunately, it falls and blacks out, and the last person dies. He wakes up later and sits on his bed thinking. He is upset that he could not save the life of the last person who needed help, and he remembers the words of the adults there, who told him that he should not be blamed, because what happened was not his blame. He managed to cure many people before the last cause. Although he is encouraged by his success, he is also discouraged by his failures. He feels bad for not being able to do anything. He realizes that he needs to increase his healing power and level up if he wants to heal people the way he wants. He believes that the only way to successfully do this without any problems is to register with the Adventurers Guild. If he does, he feels that he can quickly level up and increase his strength. He goes to the guild and immediately enters the guild and is amazed at how the guild looks. It looks beautiful and amazing and he wants to be a part of them. He meets the clerk and tells him that he wants to register with the guild. She welcomes him and gives him an application to fill out. It takes the form and fills in the information. He returns the uniform to her and she tells him that she has martial arts skills so she can enroll in the guild. He wonders if he wouldn't have been able to enroll in the guild if he didn't have martial arts skills. He tells her that since she has the skills, she can join them, and he has to explain how the adventure lifestyle works. He tells him that he will get a mission in the guild, and after he successfully completes the mission, he will return to the guild to get his money, and he will pay the guild 10% of the money as an operating fee. He listens to him well and asks that he be punished if he fails to complete the task. He tells her that there are fees for failure, so she needs to control herself and make sure she doesn't miss any assignments. Hearing this, he is very scared. He asks her if there is a special mission for the healers. He says he's a healer and he doesn't know how to fight. He said that if he did, he could teach him how to fight and work as a healer. She asks him if someone can train him there and if he pays for the training with his services. He says he should tell his boss first. He asks her to stay and wait for him while he calls the guild leader. He comes back after a few seconds and he comes with a big man. Lucille is very scared when he sees the figure of this man. The man looks very big and scary. It wasn't the first time he saw a scary person trying to pull himself together, because when he was in the other world, his master was also very big and scary, and he met him here. There was no one, a world that could be worse than any other, so he decided to pretend he was good. He looks at the man who calls himself a boy, who asks what he wants, and he explains that he wonders if he can work as a doctor in the guild while someone else trains him in martial arts. The man asks him why he wants to train himself to fight. He reminds her that she is a healer and that healers don't need to learn to fight. Lucille explains that it's because he doesn't want to be a burden to anyone. He says that he feels weak. If he encounters a monster, he will be killed, and he does not want to lose his life that day. The man tells him he heard and asks when he wants to continue. Tells him that he will be paid 1 coin as salary and tuition fee will be deducted from his salary. The man tells her to move on immediately. But Lucille says she wants to move on in 5 days. The man orders the servant to take care of him. The lady introduced herself as Naniela and he smiled at her. He immediately smiles at her and says her name too. Suddenly he felt eyes on him. He turns to see several people looking at him. The person in front of him coughs, and the person behind him leaves. He assumes that this man also holds a high position in the guild, and he introduces himself as Broad, the guild leader. Lucille appreciates and leaves Broad. He returns home and is happy that he will get stronger in a few days. As she remembers what future awaits her, Monica enters the room with her food. He tells her that he brought her food and asks her how her day was and if she can get what she wants. He tells her that he went to the guild and they agreed to train him in martial arts. He is very proud of her. Before he leaves, she asks him what level he needs to reach as a healer to become a professional, and he tells her that if he can reach level 5 before the age of 20, he can be accepted as a professional. Thinking about it, he has to add a degree every year and wonders if he can do it. He says he'll take her out on a date if she can make it. He is shocked to hear this and she doesn't expect him to say it. She wonders what he means by a date and encourages herself that she will make it to get him on a date. A week later, he resumed training. His deadly course in holy magic passed quickly and he was finally done. He returns to the Healers Guild where he meets Kururu and appreciates her for staying with him and helping him. He says he's done and how it's going. He told her that he was a very good and excellent healer, so he had his work cut out for him before he even finished raising his affinity. He appreciates her again and tries to leave, but she tells him that if he sees Lumina, he should appreciate her too. He promises to check on Lumina next time he comes. He goes to the guild and immediately inside he sees several eyes looking at him. He said the views felt familiar, as if he was sitting in his board meeting and his sales were low. He goes to the maid and it's not Naniela this time but another maid. He introduces himself and says he's a new adventurer who needs to start training with Broad. So he tells her to go underground and he'll find a training center. When he arrives, he sees Broad, but notices he's the only one there. Broad glares at him, shaking his body, but he doesn't want to look weak, so he pretends to be fine and greets Broad. Broad says he's surprised Lucille didn't run away after seeing the way Lucille looked at him. He tells Lucille that they're just training, and Lucille feels scared again, but not so much here. He bows and says he's willing to learn, and Broad tells him he has guts. They start training and Broad asks her to run. He will keep running until he is tired. He calls Broad evil, but admits that compared to his life on Earth and how he died, he had a happy life. He claims to be in heaven and suddenly faints from exhaustion. After he recovers, Broad sits back and lets out a very loud scream. Broad then asks him to fight. He throws a leg first at Broad, but he's too weak. Broad asks if he can go that far, and he says that's why he's training to get better. After that day's practice, Broad tells him that he needs to learn to train well and exhaust himself, so it could grow better. He gets injured and tries to use his magic to heal himself, but Broad refuses, saying that if he heals naturally, it will increase his healing power. He decides to do it, and Broad also teaches him how to increase his strength. He appreciates Broad, but questions why there aren't more adventurers training. Broad tells him that young adventurers don't have money, so instead of training in the jungle and getting injured, they go straight to missions. He says that he wants to put Lucille to bed so that he can heal everyone. regardless of age or race, and Lucille promises to do so. Some wounded adventurers arrive. At first they think that Lucille won't heal them, but he heals them without collecting money. He really understands that doctors have a bad image in this country. He returns to Broad and tells him that he can only heal 8 people at a time and he wants to increase the numbers. Broad says he can do it if he's tired and sees how far he can go. Although she knows it will be stressful, she admits it is to her advantage, so she decides to do it. Before leaving the guild, Broad asks him if he wants to live in the guild. He wonders what he owes, and Broad even says that he is given 3 meals a day. It looks like a jackpot, so he asks Broad what he'll get in return. But Broad says it's his adventure to stop dying needlessly. Lucille promises to do her best and asks if she can heal the other person who comes to her. Broad says the world would be a better place if every healer was like Lucille. Seeing how things are going in her favor in the new world, Lucille agrees that she has found a good place to live, and asks if he can heal any other person who comes to him. If every healer is like Lucille, seeing how things are going in his favor in the new world, Lucilla says broadly that the trees have found a good place and a good place to settle down. If all the healers in the world are like her, the world will be a better place indeed. If he wants to leave Lucille, even if he wants to live there, he wants to live there. During guild training, this means that during training he doesn't leave the guild, which sounds great to him, but he remembers all the stress he had that day, from the mad dash to the other training. He wonders if he's ready to do this every day of his life. He decides it's not cool gamble, and he asks to take it easy for a month, says wide, all is well, and he can only decide to work for a month, during which he must always leave himself to be used, and he has no right to complain. He says that he is also ready for training. He thinks that he will have a free roof over his head, and that he will even get food, which is more than enough to excite him. D-Master is not angry that they made such a deal, and Broad tells him that he has a lot of influence in the guild and what he has done is final, so there is no reason for Lucille to be afraid. Lucille is so excited about it after training that she goes to get water for a bath when she gets water poured on her head. Rod leaves her and tells her to meet in the cafeteria after work. She takes the dress and puts it on. She feels good about wearing it, but she holds the dress in her hand, wondering what will happen to her previous dress, and she smells the dress. It annoys her so much that she screams and sees him remove it from her face, and he tells her that he appreciates her for healing the wounded adventurers another time, and he tells her it's nice because he likes to heal people. She asks him why he came, and he tells her that he sent her to get her clothes and wash them, but she refuses to show him even though she's excited to see him wash her dirty clothes. It's not necessary for him to go that far. She gets really upset and asks if he's rejecting her because she wants his type to touch her clothes. Her ears go down and he's very disappointed. She tries to tell him it's not because he says she's rejecting him because she doesn't think it's good for someone so beautiful to wash her clothes to come back to her. At this he rushes to her and takes her clothes, telling her it's her duty to find them among the guild laundries. She appreciates him and asks what he'll do for her in return, but she says she doesn't need to worry about any of that. Just like when they're having a team dinner, everyone is eating happily and he sees Broad. He walks to meet Broad and he sees a lot of food on Broad's table. He asks him if they're having a party, but Broad tells him that the food belongs to him only. When he finishes his meal, he has to come to meet me in the basement. He looks at the food wondering if I can finish it, but he thinks it might be another activity, so he decides to finish it. He appreciates them for the food and starts eating at the first bite. He feels like he's on top of the world. The food is so nice and he enjoys the food in a few minutes and says he'll take it to his place. Before entering the room, Lucilla asks her training. Before going to sleep, she asks if there is anyone she needs to heal, but she says that there is no one to heal her, and that she will enjoy the night, because she will use her a lot the next day. Since she has a busy schedule the next day, she thinks that she should spend the night and have a good rest. He doesn't even know the time when he checks the time and he sees that it's a few minutes after 7. He thinks that the average person shouldn't go to bed so early and says that he doesn't want to sleep because he can't sleep. He decides to take some time to exercise and improve his level. It's breakfast time. He goes to the cafeteria and Broad tells him that everyone will eat here until the training is over. He talks to Broad. The cook comes there. Broad introduces him to the cook. Holgar also talks to him and tells him that he is in charge of the cafeteria, because when Holgar talks, he sees him as a bear, and he sees himself as a bear, and he thinks he is, right? So he asks the Holgar what kind of species he is. He says he is from the werewolves, and Lucille is happy to meet another species. In this society, the Holgar brings her food, and before the meal, Goldberg also brings her a cup of drink and asks her to drink it. The drink looks strange. Not only is it slightly discolored and unusual, but it looks like they made tea there. Time and tea increases a person's stamina and strength, and it can work in a 6-hour phase. It is so strong that anyone who drinks it can recognize its wonderful works. But people avoid tea because of how terrible it smells and tastes terrible. And so he decides to drink it. But when he picks up the cup and puts it closer to his nose, he wants to vomit, because when Goldberg asks him to drink, he is very angry at the taste of the drink. He also covers his nose, because of its advantages. He still wants to drink, because he hopes that it will not taste, because it will stink. Without moving, he goes to the stream and puts his mouth in water to wash away any taste of that tea. He vomits. But when he sees the wolf in front of him, he gets nervous. It is very difficult to vomit in front of the Golgar, because he thinks that he will get angry, so he feels that he has no choice. But to drink the tea completely. Table. When Holgar is shocked, he can't imagine someone drinking tea all of a sudden, and he says that the boy is really brave. Brown also watches him from afar. He sees what Lucille has. It has been done, and this makes it really ready to learn how to learn from it, and it will eventually eat the food, and he will eventually think it will be a week when he falls. He asks who he will be with until he falls, giving up and defending. He says that he needs to protect himself by putting his mind, and he gives him a big blow until he flies into the air and falls again. He tells himself that he will not give up. He promises himself he will fight widely and win. So he smiles abroad. So they ask why he is smiling in such a situation. The adventure of the cat people came to him and brought him good luck. Beastman too. He tells them that there's no difference between humans and animals. They ask him how he's teaching broad and that every adventurer shuns the broad. He wonders why he didn't hear that before he goes to eat, and he drinks Substance X again. As he leaves the cafeteria, he notices some people staring at him and hides. A lot of food a day heals adventurers, and drinks another daily irregular Substance X, so he doesn't know why people are sneaking up on him the next day. He asks Broad and Golgar why they know, and he discovers that they are the ones who sent the adventurers to watch him, and Rod tells him how many adventurers get hurt every day and they promise to escape in a month. And after a month he says they will call his bodyguards. He runs fast. He teaches how to attack by throwing stones at an arrow. He wonders when he will be allowed to shoot a gun. A month is really too short to learn everything, but slowly he decides to do it. He smiles and patiently says that everything will be fine. The Healers Guild says he has to pay his sacrifice, and he says he has to earn money too. Rod asks him what he will do if he sees someone who gives him enough money to pay his sacrifice for a year, and he says he'll go back to training, so he gives him enough money to make an offer. He doesn't want to take it at first, but eventually he does, and if it's right he asks to pay. But he says he wants to train better and stand on his own. He leaves and returns to the guild. He finds Broad waiting for him in the lobby, and Broad is excited to see him, asks Nanila to renew his card, and drags him away that night, gives him a book called Encyclopedia of Low-Level Healers, but says he just needs to learn how to heal. So he has to read the book and study well. He is surprised. The broad leaves are still sweet inside him, and the Golgar gives him Substance X to drink, which he drinks regardless.